About 2 years ago, I moved my business back into downtown Fort Pierce. For years, I had been in tradition, and it became too crowded there. Moving back into downtown Fort Pierce with my business has reinvigorated my passion for our local area. I'm a fourth generation St. Lucie County native. My name is Dan Dixon, and this is Citizens of St. Lucie. I use this space to record content for my business, which is centered around retirement planning. But this podcast isn't about me. This is about our area and the people who make it so cool. We're going to try to highlight local businesses and local issues without political spin. There's plenty of podcasts with our local politicians and people who have an agenda. I'm just a local business person who loves my area and want to highlight some of the people that make it so awesome. Today, we're going to introduce our first guest, who may become a co-host. He's also a fourth generation St. Lucie County native, and his name is Cooper Osteen. You may have seen him around downtown. He's the guy that's wearing those absurdly short shorts. And while I had some questions about those shorts to begin with, I've known Cooper almost my whole life. And while the shorts are crazy, he's a pretty cool dude. But he's also a very influential and powerful figure in St. Lucie County business. And I thought we'd highlight some of the things that he does, some of the things that I remember about Cooper growing up. Hopefully you're interested in some of these things that are happening around town, and we're going to make some suggestions for what we think could make it even better. Thanks for tuning in. I think I met Cooper Osteen when I was 6 or 7, for the kids watching. And I remember very vividly people talking about Cooper and his baseball abilities. And it wasn't too long after Cooper had left Little League and had gone to John Carroll and played for my dad. My dad was the coach at John Carroll High School for like a million years. But Cooper was one of the first kids I ever remember my dad allowing to come out and participate in practice as an 8th grader. And my dad would talk about how smooth his hands were and said all kinds of nice things about Cooper that he never said about me playing baseball. If you're watching, Dad, don't think I didn't notice. He's my biggest fan, so all in jokes. Cooper's baseball skills took him from St. Lucie County to the biggest stage. We want to highlight that, and I won't give too much of the details. But here's Cooper's highlights. After leaving St. Lucie County and John Carroll High School, Cooper went to Ole Miss, where he played second base. And at Ole Miss, there was a statistician named Seth Keshel. If you look Seth Keshel up, he's very involved in politics and elections and stats. And he follows these elections very closely and makes analytical decisions and projections. But back in 2004, Ole Miss suffered a brutal season-ending collapse, which featured 2 separate 6-game losing streaks. And Seth Keshel was tasked in that next year with putting together an algorithm similar to what we've seen on Moneyball that would highlight both fundamental play and clutch performance. And those stats were mashed together at the end of the season, and the inaugural winner of the Seth Keshel Cup for performance and clutch ability in the 2005 season was awarded to none other than the greatest second baseman Ole Miss has ever seen, Cooper Osteen. Following those Ole Miss seasons, Cooper played for the Phillies, where he won the Bill Giles Award. The Bill Giles Award is presented to the minor leaguer in the Phillies system that best embodies what the Phillies are about. And as a Braves fan, I don't think that's all that impressive, but in reality, it's a pretty cool award to have won. Following his baseball career, Cooper has launched multiple successful real estate ventures. We hope to highlight those today, along with some fun stories that we both remember from our past. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you find this to be fun. We're going to try to highlight many more businesses in the coming months. If you'd like to come join me sometime, leave us a comment, tell me what your business is, and let's get together and chat. And I'll make you sound as cool as I just did for Cooper. Coop.
Morning, Dan.
First episode, citizens of St. Lucie, 2 fourth-generation pals.
Be lying if I didn't say I was honored.
I couldn't ask for a better first guest. Listen, I've talked pretty nice about you in your intro, which is against my nature.
It's a little tough, probably.
I prefer to highlight the negatives, but for this podcast, Coop, we're trying to highlight the positives of St. Lucie. So we'll leave those stories.
Let's leave those aside for today.
Maybe we'll leave one of those stories for the end of today's episode. Right, but maybe we'll surprise the audience and maybe the guest with a little Cooper Osteen story that we have in the pocket.
Very good.
What I'd like to start, though, with Coop, and the purpose of this podcast, I said in the intro that moving back down here a couple of years ago really reinvigorated my passion for the local area. And, I'm a 4th-generation local native. You're a 4th-generation local native. Our offices happen to be conjoined, and it does make coming to work a little more enjoyable. But we're not just having fun down here. Yeah. We're getting some work done. And I thought it'd be cool, have you on, talk a little bit about what you guys are doing, your business or businesses, and just kind of talk about the impacts that we're having in the community. So, I've kind of highlighted your career at a aerial view,
okay.
But let's talk about how we get into the real estate business after we leave the Phillies organization, maybe, and then how we wind up where we're at today.
Well, the decision to leave the Phillies organization is one that happened in, I'd say maybe about 30 minutes.
That's when the best decisions are made.
I was on the field in spring training 2007.
Fresh off the Bill Giles Award.
Fresh off the Bill Giles Award. I guess I say this. I had been thinking a little more seriously about doing something else for a little bit of time. But it basically just hit me one day. I was out there, I was warming up, and looked up. It's a beautiful day. Nice spring training, March day in South Florida. And I was just like, I really think I need to be and want to be somewhere else right now.
Coming to the tail end of the career.
Yeah. And then the rest of the day, I kind of knew it was going to be my last day.
So how long had you been in the Phillies organization at that point? 2 years?
That was my third. That was the start of my third year.
Okay.
And and honestly, at that point, the progress had kind of slowed down. I was going back to the same place that I had been the year before. And I knew that, at that time, I really hadn't put much effort in doing anything other than baseball.
Right.
So I knew that there would be a learning curve with the next step, whatever that was. So at 25 or 26, whatever it was, I've got
26 or 7 for the kids.
That left me time to do that.
Right.
I could spend a few years. I could get proficient at something, and quite honestly, there were a lot of guys that were a lot older than me that were in the minor leagues and had less time to play with.
Right.
And I really didn't want to be there in my upper 30s and then have to go and start.
And you probably saw that with some of your teammates. They had aged and not really made the level maybe that they wanted to, and now you're in your 30s, and it's like, what the heck am I going to do?
And I think that's just, it's a little bit of human nature. You feel like some of these older guys, they didn't want to start at the bottom somewhere. They get a little older and feel that they're kind of entitled to start a little higher on the ladder,
right,
even though they haven't really actually. So.
Maybe they're expecting the experience to pay off, not so much their merits on the field, right?
Sure. Yeah.
I've earned it.
Yeah, that's right. So basically made this decision one day, And it was actually my best day of spring training I ever had because it was like,
of course,
it's over, it's done. It's like, now I can do
all the pressure's
off.
Do
whatever I want today.
That's right.
If they want to fire me, if they want to. So I remember just jerking around, throwing the ball around, having a great time. I had a great day.
No stress over being
cut. No getting cut. Bad throws. Who cares?
You're about to cut yourself.
So, yep, that's right. I'm cutting myself. The job. This is already done.
Yep.
So I can do whatever today. So I did. It was a great day of spring training, and then I had basically kind of discussed this at a hypothetical with my dad, who had a real estate appraisal company and brokerage here in Fort Pierce for a long time.
Yep.
So that was always kind of the plan.
Let me interrupt you for just a second. Now that you brought your dad up, I think it would be, we'd be remiss not to point out maybe the greatest Little League coach St. Lucie County has ever seen.
He's up there for sure.
Ran a New England Patriots level, dynasty with Riverside baseball.
Started out my 9-year-old year, Riverside, old classic Fort Pierce staple.
No longer.
Their inaugural year. I was 9 years old.
Yep.
Now, here's the bad part. First year, we were 0-27.
Hey, Tom Brady, well, I guess he won the Super Bowl his first year, so not a real good comparison.
Almost had one win that year, but just couldn't quite get there.
Who were the studs when you were 9 in Little League? Who are the studs that are worth mentioning in this video?
The guy, I can tell you some names that I remember being in 3rd grade and definitely was not looking forward to facing.
Hit us with them.
Matt Page was one. Ryan Johnson.
Oh, Ryan Johnson, man. I remember him. He threw hard.
Really hard. There was a couple others too. Who did Schultz? Schultz had like your Josh Lanes and your.
Oh yeah.
There's another Schultz guy that was really Gage Thomas.
Okay. Some local lore names right there.
Yeah.
Haven't heard those names in years.
I'm forgetting a bunch of them. But dude, I mean, the pitchers kind of stick out to me because I spent a lot of time worrying about facing them.
Correct.
They were 12 and I was 9.
For me, those guys were Dave Pfeiffer and Chase Steele. And if you guys are watching this, like I still have nightmares about your stupid left-handed hard throwing fastballs at 12. So yeah. But I mean, Bump grew that Little League program into a absolute dynasty.
And, one thing that always sticks out to me that he says, like at that time, like when I was 9 and those guys were 12, that was still through all of my days of baseball, that was the greatest mismatch that there ever was.
For sure.
Because there's the huge physical difference at that time, and it was like my second year of like baseball moving at you. Yeah.
Yep.
So
I feel like though a lot of that's your sink or swim moment. Either baseball's going to click for you if you're thrown into that environment, or it's not. And, I think you could point back and say, some of those guys, they didn't go all through those years probably because of that.
It's like, that's where my dad tells the story sometimes about his brother, where there was a pitcher that he didn't want to face, and he sat down in the outfield, and it made him take him out of the game, and that was the last baseball game he ever played.
Whoops!
So
baseball's not for me. I'm out of here, guys.
Yep. So
somewhere along the way, most baseball players have that realization, right? Yeah.
Lay down in the outfield. Sink, swim, or lay down in the outfield.
That's it. I'm done, guys. I'm just gonna sit down out here till you pull me out.
Yeah. So
anyway.
Riverside, eventually we started making some progress. Dave Hancock came around, turned into a great third baseman and then a catcher. We had Hyman Raines, who started playing. Plus, it didn't hurt that at the time Glenn Raines was coaching the team, and he handed out sweatbands for only for clean base hits.
Well,
not one of these C&I hits off somebody's glove, clean base hit, you get a sweatband.
Well, it's good to see that you've carried on the tradition. You've got the headband.
Yes.
Yeah, obviously. That's where it
some
started.
of this stuff starts. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
The fashion sense from Glenn Rains, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
Maybe we'll cut that.
We'll attribute this to Glenn. So yeah, anyways, I leave spring training. I'm in Denver, Colorado, like 48 hours later, taking my first commercial appraisal classes. And
you didn't waste any time.
Didn't waste any time. No, I was ready to go. And plus
Right.
I was ready to get started right away.
You weren't living off the big money you were making in the minors.
Oh,
You hadn't stored up the
I wanted
fortunes.
to save all that. Save all those fortunes.
Right.
I go to Denver. I take my classes. Actually, I had a nice time out there. I went to the Rio in downtown Denver. Got into a dancing competition. I won a snowboard.
Naturally.
So it's already like this is
Did you rethink at any time when you were winning that award or the snowboard? Did you think maybe I'll give up the real estate and go professional dancing?
Maybe for a couple minutes that night.
Right. As soon as you get that snowboard, it's like
maybe this is it, because I'm doing something different. Maybe this is supposed to be it. I want a snowboard.
It worked out for that girl from Australia in the Olympics. Like, she's professional breakdancer, so I mean, good for her. That could have been you.
The next day, I decided I'm going to stay on track. I'm going to continue with the appraisal classes.
It's probably smart.
So I do. I come back here. I was fortunate in that, my dad had the business for a long time. He basically trained me, kind of skipping. Here's where, we start moving along pretty quick. I become proficient at that. And
so are we talking 2008, 2009 timeline?
2009, yeah. It was in the middle of a
great real estate time here in St. Lucie County.
Yeah, terrible downturn. But we had a lot of good clients that were having to, evaluate portfolios and revalue loans,
right,
and all kinds of stuff like that. So there was a big need at that time for portfolio evaluation type stuff. There was obviously no lending, but there was a lot of, which was good, because it was like what I consider to be low pressure appraisal work. If somebody's trying to get a loan, they're always trying to maximize what they can borrow, and they want the highest number, and they're calling you and they're
hounding you to make it look a certain way.
Right.
And
this was basically like, we're being required to have all this stuff evaluated here, appraise it and send it back. And it goes in a file somewhere, and so it was really great. It ended up being a great time to learn the business without a ton of like usual pressure that you would have on stuff like that. So that goes on for 5 or 6 years, and then I got into the brokerage business. I had gotten to where, I was talking to a lot of different brokers on a daily basis, kind of learned and figured out how a lot of these deals were coming together and being made. And I just thought it would be a better fit for me to be in brokerage, a little less time.
So how long in between the appraisal business jumping off 2008, 2009 to the formation of Reef to Ranch? Because that is, while it's our storefront here, I know it's not your primary business anymore, but it is still operational. That's the real estate business on the residential side that's still operational, and yet you're still the broker for. How long was there in between those periods?
That business opened in 2015.
Okay.
And that was mainly set up to be a residential and or kind of land type business at the time. We had done a couple projects in Western St. Lucie where we had bought some bigger pieces of land, carved them up, sold the land out, saw a lot of opportunity for that, for other people to do it. And so we kind of started that business. And plus, at the time, Carrie, my now ex-wife, had been with Remax as Stewart. She had
We love you, Carrie.
she had an in on, hey Carrie. She had an in on some different niches that she had been working there, and we just thought we kind of put those two things together and said this is where we're going to go, and we did. We ran with that for probably 2 or 3 years. We were both really hands-on and running that.
So, all right, we get Reef to Ranch up and running. Obviously we're not here to. I don't know how we make that transition.
Why don't we say this, that Reef to Ranch kind of ran its initial course.
Reef to Ranch served its purpose, got you your springboard.
Ran its first leg of the race.
But still operational today. It's still in operation.
Yeah. And what really happened is I started spending, there was a disconnect between my background in the commercial real estate appraisal business and what we were doing at Reef to Ranch.
Right.
I was better suited. I was better suited to be at a commercial brokerage. And at that time, I from the real estate appraisal business, I understood the real estate. I could wrap my mind around that side of things, but I was still lacking some just brokerage experience. My first brokerage experience really was when we opened that company.
Right.
So at that time,
apologies to anybody who thought Coop was experienced at those times. He was totally just flying by the seat of his pants.
Our first client at that time was Ryan Collins, who's now an owner in Reef to Ranch. So
I guess it worked out okay.
He believed in the concept.
Shout out RC.
And Carrie also she was actually the managing broker at that time. She was the managing broker.
Carrie's great. Was actually my favorite part of Reef to Ranch with my experience with you guys.
That's right.
Yeah, Carrie sold us our house back in 2018.
Well, I helped a little bit with that.
I think you watched the kids outside while she showed us something, or I don't know. You were not involved.
I think that's about.
Thanks, Carrie. Shout out. Got us a deal of a lifetime.
So there was just a little bit of it really didn't play into Carrie joked for a long time that, the first time I showed a house that she was with me on, we went on a showing. This is Charlie Olson.
Okay.
And, my theory was you basically, now granted, I can admit this today. If you go to my house, it's more like a locker room than a house.
It's a bachelor pad.
I sleep there. I eat there.
Some other recreational activities maybe here and there.
Yeah, I don't spend a lot of time
It's not a sanctuary of peace.
It's no sanctuary.
Right.
So, my theory of a house was you open it up and you let them go see it. They're all basically the same. Go in, knock yourself out.
Yep.
So, Carrie at the time was like, what are you doing? I'm like, point being, residential real estate, there was a little bit of a disconnect.
Maybe too many hurdles for Coop.
So
it's more of a woman's touch, maybe.
Maybe. I start with SLC commercial in 2017.
So let me stop you right there. Mm-hmm. I am going to learn about this live, so let's learn together.
Okay.
I see SLC commercial signs all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me a little bit about SLC commercial if you can, maybe some history and how we got to where we are. I don't know anything about SLC commercial, so I'd love to know.
So SLC commercial was started by Jeff Chamberlain.
Okay.
In 25 years, so
around 2000.
2000, I think it was actually before that. So it was late 90s.
Okay.
So they started out, I think it actually started out as, it was Stewart Land Company, was the SLC. So they were based out of Stewart. And, at the time...
We're not here to highlight Stewart businesses, just for the record.
At the time, it's SLC now, so...
Now it looks like SLC, yeah.
St. Lucie County commercial.
They're pulling one over on us, people.
So yeah, basically started out with Jeff and a partner, and they grew that business over the years. And, it was one that I always... like I said, in the appraisal business, I had a lot of interaction with the different brokerages on the Treasure Coast.
Right.
And my dad had done the same thing for years, had relationships with these people, and it was always the company that we kind of considered to be the preeminent company in terms of their agents, what they did, what they knew, how they represented their clients, how they operated. And so it just kind of so happened that while I was still with Reef to Ranch, I did a lease deal with SLC Commercial.
Okay.
And Jeff's told this story a bunch of times because I didn't know exactly what the reason was that he was calling me to go to lunch and stuff after this. I was like, I don't know, maybe
The tight jeans.
I guess maybe.
I'm going to have to edit a lot of my comments out of this podcast.
So he wants to go to lunch after we do this deal and basically started recruiting me from there. Like, I think you'd be a good fit.
Yeah.
And don't you think it might be beneficial for you to be at a commercial company?
Yeah.
You're doing commercial deals. You have a little bit more credibility. And plus, at the time, honestly, like, I needed some brokerage guidance.
Yeah.
Little
mentorship.
I was learning through trial and error,
Right.
which is generally not the best way to do it.
Generally.
And and going to SLC, I say probably saved me 5 to 7 years in terms of just being able to pick up the phone, call somebody that knows what they're doing, and say this is the best way to do it.
Right.
Not the 3 ways that you would have tried and failed, and then that's how you do it.
Yeah, I mean, you can bash your head against the wall
Yeah.
by yourself, or you
Yeah.
can get somebody to grab you by the hand and say, "Listen, I've done that already.
Exactly.
That's not what's going to work, and
Right.
and here's what does," and then you kind of make it your own. Now, let's fast forward a little bit.
Mhm.
It's my understanding. Now, I did a little bit of research because I knew I was going to have you on. Like, found the old Miss Jersey hiding in the closet, but it's my understanding that for 2025.
Mhm.
SLC Commercial recognized maybe their top revenue producing agent here in the last week or two. And just to bring us up to speed, modern day, we were going from Cooper Osteen, who needed his hand held,
Mhm.
to it's my understanding that the 2025 SLC Commercial Agent of the Year, and apologies to any of those other agents who aren't as good as this guy, is none other than Cooper Osteen.
That's
Is that accurate?
That's accurate.
That's what I heard. I found that in my little research.
Yeah. It was 2025. I actually just got the award last night.
Man, incredible timing. I've
Yeah.
got my spies out there everywhere.
Yeah, you do. You do. In the parking lot, too.
Well, yeah, hey, no bad parking around here. That's an episode for another time.
So, yeah, it was 2025. And, it took me a little bit of time to kind of figure out where my best fit was.
Yeah.
I spent 2 years working with a guy that is, as a client, that's one of my best friends now. And he was in the development business, and God bless him, because I learned that business inside and out. But ultimately figured out that there's a ton of business, and a lot. To me, Fort Pierce, St. Lucie County is probably the best growth market in the country. There's as much opportunity here as there is everywhere. So, I was working with Jarrett for a long time, and, working on these projects, and, ultimately to basically come back home and realize there's plenty to do right here. And that's where I am. That's what I've been doing, selling warehouses, selling strip centers, selling, apartment complexes, and
You're a deal hunter.
deal hunter. Yeah.
And, Coop would never brag on himself, so I'm going to. Being an office mate and sharing kind of an office space with these guys, I get to interact with them, more than probably the average St. Lucie County citizen. And I'm going to tell you, coming in here and getting fired up because Coop's out there hunting a deal, man, that makes me want to go hunt a deal. And so, I did talk about in the intro how much I've enjoyed being here and having this office space with you guys, but I didn't really get too much into it. And man, it's contagious. You come in here and you're hunting a deal, and it's like, man, I better not sit at my desk and mess around today, because Coop's going to pull one over on me.
It is. And it's, it's a thing that, I heard this early on in baseball and always stuck with me. And that is that, if you're not doing something, your competitor is.
Yep.
If you're sitting there, you're getting left behind. So, it's kind of a mentality that you got to come in and you got to put the work in every day.
Definitely.
Same thing. I mean, I get the same thing from you. I feed off of that too. So it's like,
hey man, you see a client come in here and pass some deals off to me, it's contagious. And eventually we'll get Jared and RC and Brett, they'll catch the virus and they'll hunt some deals up like the two big dogs here. But listen, it's been so enjoyable getting to work with you guys, and our businesses couldn't really be more different. Yeah. But at the end of the day, we're both out here hunting some deals.
Hunting deals, that's right.
Well, I'll give you just maybe another minute or two. Where is SLC Commercial going from here? Mm-hmm. Where is Cooper Osteen going from here? And then I have a little surprise segment that I want to get into with you to wrap up.
Well, I'd say, first of all, I feel like I've been very fortunate to have had some really good leaders, starting from, high school with your dad as my baseball coach, my first real baseball program baseball coach, and from there to Mike Easom, Mike Bianco at Ole Miss, and really a similar thing has happened in the real estate business, between my dad initially, Jeff Chamberlain, Jarrett Neese. And I feel like just like kind of in baseball, you sort of have these sort of rollover periods where you go, you spend 4 years here and then you kind of graduate to the next level.
Right.
I'm not going anywhere from commercial real estate. I'm going to stay in that business. But I would say if there's a next step that transitions from here, I think it's about, I actually just got off the phone with another local business operator. She's done a great job running complete business. It couldn't be more different than real estate, but she's great administratively. She's great with management. And we're looking to put together some funds to go out and get more personally invested in the community.
Yeah.
So I believe this is the place. I believe it's the time. And I think that there's more people that need a investment vehicle where they don't have to go and write a check for $2 million themselves, but they can get partially invested in some of these opportunities around here.
Yeah.
At a smaller buy-in cost. So I'm working on that currently.
Yeah, I mean, I think as a local who most of my acquaintances are locals, I have these conversations, and I think, I would love to see the tides change, so to speak. Our contemporaries are fighting very hard against change that comes to our area. And that was my first instinct as well. Like, hey, I like our little tiny town and I don't want any outside influence because this is where I grew up. But I think if partially, to do with what you're dealing with, if we could look at it as an investment opportunity to say, hey, maybe we can get some of these locals involved with the growth, not just looking at developers coming from the outside and then complaining about it. Yeah. Hey, let's get involved and throw some money into it. And if you want to complain, you better get involved. Otherwise, you're going to get left behind and things are going to get done that maybe you don't approve of. And what I want to focus on with this podcast or with this series is I don't want the politician spin, and I don't want somebody to sit in here and say, oh, the growth for St. Lucie County is going to be this and it's going to be great. And there's going to be challenges that come along with growth, but I think as locals we should embrace it. And so that's going to bring me to my little surprise segment. Okay. And I'm going to try to do this with every guest that I bring in. And I've had in the back of my mind, I've had an idea of a major local, I've had in my mind a major restaurant chain that for the life of me, I can't figure out why they left St. Lucie County, A, but B, why haven't they come back? Because Steak and Shake stores have exploded in the last couple of years. They've started accepting Bitcoin. They've gone to like beef tallow and gone away from seed oils. And, not to go down my whole path, but I'm down 70 pounds from about 3 years ago. I had ballooned up. I was a whale. And changing my diet made a big deal. And so, while I don't think Steak and Shake is diet food by any means, taking any steps to eliminate some of that processed, BS from your menu, great. Let's embrace Bitcoin or crypto as a payment source. It's done wonders for them. Their stores have done multiple year-over-year same-store growth. And so I wonder, why haven't they come to St. Lucie County? And I've spent a lot of time thinking about it. And as I was thinking about it, I remembered a story from maybe closer to back to those high school days. And I thought I'd tell that story here for the first time in 30 years. I kind of gave you a little teaser. I didn't tell you what the story was going to be about, but I said there's got to be less than 5 people on earth that know this story. And, I would say 7th or 8th grade Dan was not supposed to be listening to this story as it was told by the John Carroll High School baseball program. And I don't remember everybody who was involved, but I do know the main player of the story, and I do know the setting. And the main player of the story is none other than Cooper Osteen. And the setting is a Steak and Shake restaurant that used to be located out by the turnpike on Okeechobee Road.
Okay.
And the story, as I remember it...
I don't know this story, by the way.
The story, as I remember it, is this. And as best I can tell, it's the only reason why Steak and Shake would not come back to St. Lucie County, and I think probably the reason it inevitably closed. So I'm going to tell you the story from the way I remember it. Maybe it'll jog some memories and you can add it.
I hope it does. I want to hear this story.
Now, I would say this is probably your junior year of high school. It was not your senior year of high school. So I was not in high school yet.
Okay.
But my dad was your coach, and somehow you guys had gone to Steak and Shake to either eat maybe before a practice or a game. And I believe you maybe had been asked to leave this Steak and Shake against your will. And I think the reason was that young Cooper maybe had some lapses in judgment. And, you were a little rambunctious teenager, and there was a nice elderly couple enjoying some steak burgers and fries. And on the table at a Steak and Shake, if you've ever been to one, is one of those little bottles of peppers with vinegar, okay? And as the story was told, you picked up this pepper and vinegar bottle from this random couple's table, you squirted it in your mouth. Unknowingly, it was spicy. I think you weren't expecting it. It was maybe a little hotter. And you picked up the guy's drink and drank it because you needed to extinguish the flames in your mouth.
I am vaguely remembering.
And I think then you were then asked to leave Steak and Shake, and inevitably Steak and Shake has closed in St. Lucie County and has not come back. And I think economically speaking, we would welcome maybe a fast food chain that is prioritizing getting processed ingredients out of their menu, but I'm not sure that they would welcome a return to St. Lucie with someone like you here who has done an activity like that.
I would be honest, I would be willing to offer them some type of, if this does go, I would be more than willing to offer some type of warranty and personal guarantee to them that nothing like this will happen again.
And to bring this full circle, Steak and Shake, if you're watching, SLC Commercial would love to handle the transaction of bringing you guys back here.
Rep them right back into the same place with a warranty.
With a warranty, will not happen again. Watch out for your peppers if you see this guy in a restaurant, because he's going to squirt that vinegar right in his mouth, and it's going to be a little spicier than maybe he had anticipated. And I bet if Coach Dixon had heard that story back in the day, there would have been a few laps.
There would have probably been some lap running.
Little Dan, he took that story, he shoved it in his pocket, and I've been waiting 30 years to bust it back out, because I believe there was like you jumped over a table or a railing, and it was quite the scene in this Steak and Shake. And if anybody is watching this that was a party of that, I would love to get maybe some firsthand commentary.
I conveniently deleted part of that from my RAM, but it's
memory card full.
I do vaguely remember that, and It sounds pretty dead on.
It sounds to me like a Cooper Osteen story that would have. I don't think I'm exaggerating it too much, but hey, listen, we've grown. We're hopeful that we can bring a Steak and Shake back into the mix. Cooper, I'm so thankful that you joined me. I hope that this is the first of many. Man,
great to be here, my friend. Thank you for having me.
what a day.